Okay, so welcome everybody. My name is Silvia Di Blasio and I represent the World of Reconnects Network. Thank you for joining us for the webinars and conversation cafe series, where we are offering a wide range of rich educational and supportive opportunities for our global community of the World that Reconnects facilitators, members, and friends of the network. Our intention is to strengthen the web of the World that Reconnects community while continually reaching beyond our current edges to weave deeper connections with others who are contributing to the great turning in diverse and complementary ways. So today we have Jolie Elan, facilitator, and the webinar, How to See with Gaian Eyes. And I'm going to pass the baton to Jolie now.
So I just wanted to do a little brief introduction of myself so you guys know a little bit about who I am before we go into our opening meditation. So I started off as an activist. I was like a hardcore earth activist, and I worked on all of these sacred site campaigns in Native American territory in the US. And I saw how people were so reverently in love with the earth and had just amazing connections. Like, I was an anti-nuclear activist, and that movement was led at the Nevada nuclear test site by a Native American elder, Corbin Harney, who said, the water talked to me and told me that one day I'm gonna look like water and no one's gonna be able to drink me. And so he started this, he helped lead people to help stop nuclear testing. And so the more I met people like this, I was like just amazed at the amount of intimacy we can have with the earth. But I never thought that it was possible for me because I'm a Jew from New York, and I just thought it was out of my realm, which I later discovered is not true. And I think a lot of us have that feeling that for whatever reason, if we're not living in our indigenous lands, or if we don't even know what our indigenous lands are, that we are not able to have these deep, intimate connections, reciprocal connections where the land can speak to us and call us to do her work. So I'm hoping that we can get a taste of what that might feel like for us today. And so after I was an activist, I was like, well, if we just tell people about how the earth is being destroyed, well, they'll listen. and so I became a scientist, and I learned about forestry and ethnobotany, and then I realized that, you know, people don't necessarily care if you give them information. It's almost like you have to teach them to love, because people will pretty much not do anything unless they love. They won't protect the earth unless they love her. So then I founded Go Wild Institute, which our mission is to weave science, myth, and spirit in finding. What is our mission? To weave science, myth, and spirit to find balance in the web of life. So that's what we do. And we teach many, many classes and all sorts of things, and you can find that out on our website. And I was hoping that we could come home to nature in an embodied way today, and that we can share exciting science about the intelligence of the earth, that is really dovetailing with indigenous wisdom, that our earth is sentient and alive and sacred. And that my hope is also to give some tools for facilitators and people who want to teach people how to connect within the web of life. So that's the goals for today. And now I'm going to lead you guys into a little meditation. And some of you may have done the meditation that we sent out with this, and this is pretty similar, but it will have its own twist. So it'll be about 10 minutes, and I invite you to get really comfortable in your chairs to start feeling your bottom on your seat, to start paying attention to your breath. You feel what it feels like for your chest to move in and out as you breathe. Maybe start paying attention to what it feels like for the the breath to be felt on the top of your lip. And see if you can try to bring the energy from your head into your chest, into your big, beautiful heart of the earth. Your heart is made of the earth. Bring it down into your belly with the colonies of bacteria. Way, way, way down into your feet, into the ground that is our Mother Earth. And I want you to just focus on the breath. See if you can close your eyes and just focus on your breath. And what we take in, the oxygen that we are breathing, is coming from the trees around us. We are inspiring what the trees respire. And the trees are inspiring what we respire. So what we breathe out is carbon dioxide, and the trees are taking in that carbon dioxide, that waste product, all our exhales and exhausts, all the things that make our climate hotter. Trees are taking in that carbon. And then they're doing their magic. They're taking water, precious water from deep down in the water table, and pulling it up into their solar panel leaves. And they're mixing it with our breaths. And they are making sugar. They are making sugar from sunshine. And we are all part of that sugar from sunshine. We are woven in a web of sweetness. That is what runs this whole planet, is sweetness. And, you know, the root of inspire and conspire is spirit. We are conspiring with the earth around us, with the plant life around us, in sweetness. And no matter where you are, no matter how stressed out we are, no matter if we're in jail, if we're in our cars, whatever, we are breathing in this web of life because we are part of this web of life. You cannot not be part of this web of life. All right, so take maybe like a couple more breaths here in the element of air. And we're going to move to the element of earth. Our Mama Earth. And every part of our body comes from the earth. Our bones are made of rock that came through fungus into plants, into us through whatever we ate. The calcium and minerals in our bones was rock in the ground. It was probably under the oceans too. Rock under the oceans. And it moved into our bones. And you know, think about your little teeth. All your teeth is just little rocks. And your skull as a big rock. Our spines as a collections of beautifully connected, interlocking rocks that hold us up. We are walking rocks. We are little mountains. Everything that makes us came from the earth, and it will go back to the earth. We are of the earth. We are earth beings. We are earthlings. And then we're going to move our attention into the element of water. Precious water, sacred water, holy water. We are mostly water, and our cells are the same saltiness as the oceans from where we came. We are bodies of water. You can feel the water in your tongue, like on your tongue in your mouth. The water in your eyeballs. I can feel the water on my sweaty palms. It's hot here. And water, as my teacher Corbin said, it talks to us and it has memory. It used to be in dinosaurs and ice crystals, clouds and rivers. Used to have octopi and fish swimming in it and whales, and used to be artesian wells and geysers. So we have all of that inside of us. We have all of that memory. We are connected to our mighty oceans. And the moon that moves the ocean's tides also moves us. We are influenced by the moon's pull, by the moon's gravity. So then I want you to move your attention to the element of fire. Transformational power of fire. And inside each one of our cells, we have a fire. It's what's burning the calories that fuel us. And those calories came from sweetness. They came from the sun. So in each cell, you're turning that sugar back into energy, into sunlight. And we are all powered on sunlight, woven in a web of life, woven with sweet sweetness. And we can always go back to this just by breathing into that sweetness of our Mother Earth, because that is our natural place. So I invite you to take a couple of breaths here in this sweet place and start feeling back into your body and wiggling your fingers and coming back to our Zoom room and to be with us. And so, Sylvia, we're going to start on the slideshow.
Okay.
Thank you.
You still have, some people are still coming in and out. So sorry for that noise.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to start the slideshow now.
Awesome. So this is called Seeing with Gaian Eyes, as you all know. And just wanted to show you where you can also get a hold of gowildinstitute.org. And I love this because it's like, it reminds us that not all the earth thinks like us with our two little eyes in our heads, you know, and there's whole different ways to see the world. And we're hopefully going to explore some of that today. Okay, next. Oh, somebody says that was one of the most lovely meditations I've ever done. Oh, thank you so much, Mary. That was sweet. I love doing it. I sort of go into a trance when I do it too. Okay, so I love this picture. This is a woman from the, I think, Amazonian rainforest, the Awa tribe, and she is nursing a squirrel, an orphan squirrel at her breast. And, she said, yeah, because sometimes they get orphaned and, we're not going to let them starve. And then they become part of our family. And then they help us gather nuts. And so this is some people's relationship within the web of life, where you would pick up a baby squirrel and nurse it. And this is just our inclination, right? Some people's inclination. And so I guess, I invite you to start rethinking, what is our family of life? How do we define our family boundaries? And I think it was Mother Teresa that said, the problem with people nowadays, I'm misquoting it, is that we draw our family circles too small. And so I'm hoping that we can expand our family circles. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is a card that I actually have held on to for 30 years. I found it like when I was going through my stuff recently. I'm like, I know why this really draws me, because this is, we're made to feel, it's like we are wired to feel connected to other beings. And one really cool story that I know about is in Iran. There was this child who went missing. There was like a farming community, and the little person was a toddler and didn't really walk very well. And the parents had went off to work, and she was being watched by maybe a younger, like a teen who wasn't watching that well. And this little toddler wandered off in the hills, the Zagros Highlands, which are like oak woodlands outside of in Iran. And they couldn't find the kid. And they couldn't find the kid for the first day. And then everybody's getting panicked, and they're widening their circles of reach of they're trying to find this child. And then they were like, we need to look at the bear caves. We need to see, like, what happened to this child. And the mothers, of course, completely panicked. The whole, it's horrible. So 3 days in, they find this child. They hear this little boy who's like in a bear cave laughing. And he is being nursed by a bear. And so this is actually a story, and a real story in the news. And then Barbara Kingsolver followed up on it, and I'll send you the story on it. But this really happened. And then I recently heard this other story. This little boy, I think it was last year, he got lost. And he was lost in the rain for 3 days, and he was maybe 4. And he said a bear saved him. So this is our relationship with our natural world, that we used to be able, or in some cultures we still are, that we feel that kinship towards our natural world. And so, one question is, well, what happened? That is a big question. But then it's like, how do we go back? And that's more what I'm concerned with today. Next slide. And so when I was a child, I felt that the world was enchanted and beautiful. And I had a pretty rough start. There was a lot of abuse in my family, and but nature was always there for me. And I'm so lucky that I had access to a little strip of trees near my house, and they were pine trees. And I remember looking at this pine cone, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing ever. It was glistening. It was like calling me. It was like, one of those cartoons where it was like, it was so beautiful. And I didn't know then about, there's the Fibonacci sequence. The pine cone represents the golden mathematical formula that so many things in natures do, like seashells. And there's a zillion things that have this. Sunflowers have this formula. I didn't know that, but something was speaking to me about this pine cone. And I felt alive, and I felt loved, and I felt just, alive and loved, and happy, so happy. And I remember taking this pine cone, and I went to show my mom. I was so little, and like the sap was like sticking to my fingers, and I was like, Mom, beautiful this is. And she was like, it's a pine cone, you know? And I think that happens to many of us. I want to do now a little memory walk. And this exercise is from Cami McBride. I learned it from her. She's an herbalist. She's amazing. You can find her online, but you can take it off the slideshow right now if you would, please, Sylvia. So we are going to do what's called a memory walk. And my screen is back on, and there was a quote that I had that I wanted to put in here, but no. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do another little guided meditation, and I'm going to kind of walk you back to maybe you can find some of these memories for yourself, because this is sort of our natural state. And when we learn to remember what that feels like in our bodies, we can then kind of tune in to that place. It's like a felt sense. So, all right. So I'm just gonna take you on a little journey. So if you wouldn't mind just closing your eyes, and we're gonna go on a memory walk to find out how it feels in our body when the earth is speaking to us. And we're not really looking for anything, and it may not come for you. It's okay. It maybe not come today, it might come tomorrow, but we're just gonna play. This is just in play. Don't take it too seriously. Now bring your attention back to your breath, into that sweetness of our Mother Earth that we are part of, into that conspiration of life, into that inspiriting of ourselves. And imagine yourself on a trail in a forest or a desert, or it could be like a park that you love. And imagine yourself walking on this little trail. Notice the time of day. Notice the light. Maybe you can feel sticks under your feet. Walk until you have just a recent memory. Maybe it was today. Maybe it was yesterday. A memory when something of this earth, maybe it was a flower or a rock or a river or a tree or just something, or a pine cone caught your attention, and you thought, oh my God, this is so beautiful. It was so beautiful that you could just feel it in your body. Would you see if you can find that? And you can just be in that place for a moment. How does it feel? Tune into how it feels. Notice what you can. How does it feel in your body when you feel love for our living earth? So I invite you to thank this place for being however you want to thank it. You may bow down or make an offering, or whatever way feels right for you to say thank you to our beloved Mother Earth. And I want you to put yourself back on the trail. Put yourself back on this trail, and we're going to walk back in time just a little bit further. Maybe it's 5 years. Maybe it's longer, shorter. Walk back to a place that you loved. Let yourself settle into that memory on this beautiful earth where you felt kinship and beauty. let yourself reside there. What does it feel like in your body? What does it feel like in your body to feel the love of our earth? Can you maybe feel the air on your skin? What does it feel like in your feet? Are there any sounds or smells? What do you feel in your heart? So in a moment, we're going to move on again down our trail. You can always come back here. This place is for you. And so we're going to say thank you, and I want you to say thank you in your way. Maybe you want to offer an offering or sing a song, however you want to say thank you. And notice what it feels like to say thank you. This is how you get to find how you show your gratitude for the world. And we're going to get up and go back on our trail. And we're going to go back to an earlier memory. Maybe this is when you were a child. Maybe it was grade school. And I know not everyone had access to nature as a child, but maybe there was a plant or an animal or a tree on the street or a cloud in the sky, a bird, something when you were a child. There's something, go back to a time in grade school when you can remember feeling love for the earth. There was something special about this tree or cloud or sunrise that you can feel your whole body connected to. Try to practice remembering, what does it feel like in your body to feel this? How old were you? Where were you? So let this feeling just fill your body. Just fill all of you. Feel your little body when you were a child. Are there creatures there? Is there water? Is there rocks? Are there animals there? So breathe one more moment in this place. Now gently say thank you. Thank you for the healing, for the beauty, for the wisdom of this experience. And gently bring yourself back from these memories and finding your breath and finding your way back to our Zoom room. Welcome back. And just so I know and can facilitate from here, if you could just type into the chat if you were able to access memories. I'm hoping that you were, but yes, or like a little bit of like how that was, so we can just take a little temperature of the group. So the first question is, share an experience that you had. And the second question is, tell about a formative experience when you shared a nature experience with others. How was it met? So 2 questions. We're going to have, Sylvia's going to work out the timing, and we'll let you know when the first round is done. And everyone's just going to go around in the first round and share their experience. And then the second one will be, tell an experience that you that you shared that with like an adult, let's say as a child, or a formative experience, and how was it met? So, and in a moment, Sylvia will ask you to join your groups, and you will press accept, and you will go to your group. So, can you imagine if we lived in a world where our elders in our society took counsel from our living world, and they believed that the earth was sentient and could speak to us? And in so many other cultures, that is the case. But it's somehow we started to believe that the earth doesn't have intelligence and can't speak to us. And so this slideshow is really about rebutting that with our own intelligence and knowledge and scientific knowledge about our intelligence of our earth. And yeah, I think that's it. Go next slide, please. Okay, so this slide is of a slime mold, and it's pretty, I love it because it just sort of blows me away. On the left side, the slime mold has been there for about, someone said that's what's called white supremacy. The earth does not have intelligence. Yeah, I mean, it's like this idea that the earth doesn't have intelligence and humans all do. Sorry, that was a chat. So this is a slime mold. And so all of these little white dots are pieces of oatmeal, and it's overlaid on the map of Tokyo. And the big blob is like main part of Tokyo, and the little white blobs are suburbs. And the slime mold loves oatmeal. And so it has figured out in 26 hours the most efficient routes spatially to go from one suburb to another. So this is something that engineers could not figure out as well as a slime mold. And so they say slime molds don't have brains, but what's going on here, which is pretty amazing. And now engineers are using slime molds to figure out very complex spatial problems when it comes to urban planning. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are going to use this definition of intelligence for this for this slideshow. So the ability to sense one's environment, to process and integrate the sensory perceptions and decide how to behave. So this is intelligence, the ability to sense one's environment, to process that sensations, and decide how to behave. So that's what that slime mold did. And I saw somebody's question that said, what is a slime mold? A slime mold is it's sort of like a fungusy organism. And the thing is that my understanding of slime molds is that it's one cell with many, many different nucleus in it. And they're bizarre creatures. But that's what a slime mold does. I mean, who would have thought that they're so smart? Next. And we know that many animals, including humans, have intelligence, right? Elephants, oh my goodness, they are so smart. And there was one study I read that there was elephants can tell the difference between human languages. They know different human languages. For instance, there were they would play the sound of Maasai people saying, hey, there's an elephant. And then there was another tribe, which I'm sorry, I forgot. And the men would say, hey, there's an elephant. But the elephant herd would cringe when the Maasai people said it, because the Maasai people hunt elephants. But the other tribe that did not hunt elephants the elephants did not respond. So they were able to tell the difference in the language that the humans were talking. And then if the females or children said the same thing, the elephants didn't get upset. It was just the men who were the hunters. So that's pretty smart. And then elephants, they also are so bonded to their tribes. I heard this story. There was this one elephant in a zoo that was flooded, and she was really, really traumatized because she stood underneath the water with her trunk up for 24 hours trying to breathe. When they finally cleared all the water, she survived. But after that, she was very traumatized, and she would carry this little tire around with her, sort of as like a security blanket. And then what happened was her best friend in the zoo died, and she was totally broken up about it. And she, at the grave of her friend, she put the tire down and gave it to her friend on her grave. So that's pretty sentient. Next slide. So crows are super smart, and they make tools. You know, they say that like tool making is like a big sign of intelligence. And I saw this one thing where crows, they could only get their food using a long stick. And so these scientists figured out, well, how hard will they work to get this stick? And they had to make 8 other decisions using different types of tools so they could get that long stick so they could get their food. So they're really smart. And then some researchers, there's a PBS documentary, I think called it's called Murder of Crows. And these researchers, they were banding these crows and their babies, and the crows started dive bombing them on campus. So much so that the researchers had to wear masks because the crows would recognize their particular face. And not only that, but the mamas and the parents would teach the babies how to recognize the face of the person who was the researcher. So the children did not even have to have contact with the researchers, but the parents told them to avoid particular researchers, which I think is just so smart. Yeah. Next slide. So we're all can kind of get behind the intelligence of animals because we're animals, right? So we can relate a little bit to the way animals think and process. But I wanted to talk more about plant intelligence because I am a botanist and this is my love. So somebody wrote, murder is the group of name for crows. Yes, like a herd for buffalo. Yeah, murder is a group of crows. So, and it's interesting to me, if you have questions, you can ask them. I don't know if I'll get to them. But the thing about Zoom that's so hard for me as a teacher is I'm really used to having feedback and questions, and we can sort of move the discussion based on what people are interested in. So if you have questions, ask them, I might get to them. I'm gonna talk about plant intelligence because I'm a botanist, and the field of plant neurobiology is blowing my mind, and I want it to blow your mind too. So this is a caterpillar eating a leaf. And, you know, plants have senses too. They sense their world. They sense their world, and then they process those senses and they make responses. That's back to our definition of intelligence. So plants, it should be no surprise that plants see because they eat light. And so while we have 4 different photoreceptors, they have 11. Light is very, very important to plants. They know the type of light. They measure the time from when the sun sets to when it rises, and they base that timing on how they fruit and flower. They're very, very tuned in to the type of light. Thank you, Sue. They should be no surprise that they are amazing when it comes to light. But let's talk about sound. They don't have ears, so how could plants listen? How can they hear? Well, snakes don't have ears either, but they can feel the vibrations of the soil. So plants don't have ears, but they hear. And so this caterpillar is chewing a leaf. And when researchers played the sound of a caterpillar chewing a leaf next to a leaf, the caterpillars, the leaves bumped up their tannin levels. They knew, and they made themselves more toxic. So just by listening to the sound of a caterpillar chomp, the plants had a chemical response. Next slide. Okay, so plants sense touch. So this on the left is a Venus flytrap. And Eric's mind is successfully blown. All right, now we can all go home. So anyway, this is a Venus flytrap. And so, you know, they're not, they have a little trip wire. And so when the insect trips the wire, the plant closes and then encloses it and then releases digestive juices and pretty much eats the plant. And these carnivorous plants live in places where the soil is very poor. But the thing is not the same touch trips the plant. So if it's wind or water or maybe not an insect that's big enough, it won't trip the wire. But a particular type of touch will trip the wire. So the plant is sensing, just like we sense with our hands, right? We know when it's something we want to grab or something we want to pull away. This plant is sensing it and how it perceives its touch sensations. And then the plant on the right is called a sensitive plant. And it closes its leaves in when it's stressed out, when maybe an animal is going to come and eat it. But it doesn't close its leaves in when it rains or other things. So it's also sensing its world and perceiving which touch is good and which touch is bad. So that's pretty amazing. Next slide. So plants have, like I said, they have senses, and so plants can taste. If you were to put two different piles of nutrients in the soil, I'm a vegetarian, what should I eat now? Yeah, that's the problem. It's pretty, it's hard. These guys are very sentient. So if you put like two different piles of nutrients in the soil, the roots will go towards the ones that are the most nutritive. So it can sense, it can taste, and it makes decisions based on that. And then plants can smell. I don't know if you can see this little orange twine in the picture. That is a plant called dodder or cuscuta, and it's parasitic. So it requires that it suck that sweet juice out of another plant. And research has shown if you plant these two, if you put one cuscuta plant the same distance from a tomato and a wheat plant, 99%, 98% of the time, that cuscuta, it puts its little tendril in the air and it circles and circles and goes for the tomato plant. I forget which one, the tomato plant, 90-something% of the time. So it's sensing and going like an animal, like getting its kill. And it's not random. It knows where it's going, which is pretty neat. Next. Okay, so plants also have a whole community, and they're communicating with each other. And so this is a kudu, I think. This is a big ungulate, and they eat acacia, and they live in South Africa. And South Africa has had a lot of drought. And so the kudu were just going about their business eating the acacia, but the acacia was super stressed out by the drought. And so what they found is all of these dead kudus, and they were trying to figure out, why are these big animals dying? They're not thirsting to death. They're not starving to death. What is going on? And when they did the autopsies and looked at the contents of their stomach, they found the levels of tannins and toxic chemicals from the acacia were so far above normal. And so the plant, in response to stress, was bumping up its chemicals. But not only that, right? What they were also doing was sending out into the air messages to other plants saying, bump up your tannin levels, because the kudu are coming. And so they were responding, which I think is neat. Next slide. Okay, so these are super smart plants. There's some plants that I have just great admiration for that are super smart, and tobacco is one of them, which is part of, I think, one of the reasons all of us vegetarians may be getting all soon plants are too, yeah, we'll be getting that plants are smart. So tobacco is one of my favorite smart plants, and tobacco produces nicotine, and nicotine is a insecticide, and nicotine kills the insects. And this little caterpillar is one that eats the tobacco plant, but isn't affected by nicotine. It can smoke like 100 packs a day, the equivalent or something like that of humans, but it doesn't bother it. It figures out a way to deal with the nicotine. So when tobacco is infested by these caterpillars, what it does is it sends out a message into the air to animals that eat these caterpillars and say, hey, you guys want some food? It's over here. So it calls out to the enemy of its enemy and gets help from the insect world to help its pest problem, which, you know, it's not just communicating with plants, it's communicating with animals too, which blows me away. And then another thing that's super neat about tobacco is that it, the moth that lays the caterpillars is pollinating during the evening. And so when another thing that it can do to try to deal with the caterpillar problem is that it changes when it flowers to the daytime and goes for a different type of pollinator. And like basically it's like, okay, we're done asking these moths to pollinate us. Now we want to use a different pollinator. So it'll just change when it flowers. That's pretty cool. And then I just want to say something about smart plants. And I wasn't really going to say this, but why not? So I have like deep relationships with plants. Maybe some of you do too. And this was a plant that came to me in my dream. And I have a problem with tobacco. Sometimes I get addicted. Sometimes I'm able to not smoke. And one time I was in this time where I was not being very sacred with tobacco. And I had this dream where I was like smoking horribly and like get in a car and everything's thrown in the car and I drive. I'm like getting ready to drive and the car goes backwards off a cliff and I die. And I wake up screaming my head off, except I'm in another dream. And then I'm in a dream where there's this like Native American person with a full-on headdress smoking a pipe of tobacco. And he was like, there's two ways to smoke tobacco. You can do it sacredly or you cannot. And anyway, so it was amazing to me because I was like, oh, this is part of the reason that people are really, a lot of tribes use tobacco because they've had these embodied experiences that this plant is actually smart and here for us to help us. Next. All right, so plants can remember, which I think is super neat. So this is a sensitive plant. We talked about how it closes its leaves when it feels stressed. And so some researchers in a lab, had a pot of it and they were tossing it back and forth to each other and the plant got stressed out and it closed its leaves in expecting that it would be harmed. But then after a while, this plant realized, oh, there's no danger. There's no danger that I'm gonna get hurt. So it didn't close its leaves. And so some researchers said, well, that's just because the plant's tired. It requires a stress response and that's like expensive. So the plant just got tired from the exercise. And so they put the plants on a shelf and then the plant remembered for a week. The plant remembered for 2 weeks. The plants remembered for 40 days, right? That is smart. Okay, next. So let's talk a little bit about where the source of intelligence of plants is. And Darwin said that the source of intelligence is in the root. And he was actually right. The brain, the processing part of the plant is in the roots. And one small rye, an annual rye plant, can have millions and millions of these little root tips that each of the root tips have thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of root hairs. So one root tip can't do much. I mean, it's like sensing gravity, and it's sensing nutrients and oxygen and hardness, and there, you know, it's sensing many, many things, but it's just one little root tip. But then if you put it together with millions or billions of others, they're all working together, and they're coordinating their movements and their knowledge with serotonin and other brain chemicals that are neurotransmitters that we use. Is this the brain? Yeah, I mean, some people would argue, yes, this is a very brain-like activity. And then the thing is, it's like the plant is able to move and like work as a swarm and sense the environment and then respond as a swarm with all of these sensing little organs. And the thing is like an annual rye plant, like it just lives one season. But if you think about an oak tree, if you think about a 400-year oak tree, that oak tree's got billions and billions and billions of these little sensing organs. And that is way more than our human brain that has 86 billion. So as ecosystems get older, they get a little smarter, they get smarter. So next. So yeah, look at that. That's the angel oak tree. It's beautiful. I just want to put that in there. Imagine what that root system is like. Oh, yeah. So let's go to other creatures in the environment. Bacteria. So people say, you know, bacteria is not that smart, but the reality is, you know, we think that, we just think nobody's smart because we think we're smart, which is really why we're dumb, if you ask me. But bacteria have languages, and each species of bacteria has its own language, only understood by its brethren. And bacteria do this thing called quorum sensing. So they're always knowing who's in the area around them. And they always know, do we have enough of us to do anything, or where are our people, right? So they're always doing this quorum sensing thing, and they have their own language. But they also have like a common language among all bacteria that they all can speak to each other, which I think is neat. And then bacteria make electricity, which blows me away, right? They're able to run electric cables under like the water to like feed their communities. Like they generate electricity. Yeah, we'll get to viruses, don't worry. Can you explain bacterial language? From Eric. I can't explain it more than that. There's a lot of stuff online about smart bacteria, and then also Stephen Buhner's written really good books about bacteria. He's the go-to, and somebody was talking about the plant intelligence in the imaginal realm, I think, in the chat, and Stephen Buhner's like, you know, I've learned so much from his books. And one of the things he says about bacteria, which is amazing, he's like, you know, we think humans are like the top of whatever, but the reality is, if you think about what are humans really good at, like we've been able to put spaceships in the air. And what do they have on them? Bacteria, right? So humans have like made these spaceships to shoot bacteria into space. And maybe that's what we're doing. That's what we're good for, right? And the bacteria are like, all right, who knows? If we see things through Gaian eyes, maybe we have no idea. Okay, next slide, please. Fungus. So this is an insect that's been colonized by the cordyceps fungus. And the cordyceps fungus is like a whole bunch of different fungi, different species of fungi that they colonize the bodies of different insects, and they get the insect to change its behavior, like to go on top of different trees, and then the fungus comes out of its head and bursts spores, and then the spores are able to spread. But the insect would never have climbed to the top of the trees if it hadn't have been infected. And then there's this one cordyceps that like makes insects go exactly, I forget the exact numbers, but like 30 7 inches on the north side of a tree, hanging from a particular type of leaf before the head opens and explodes spores. So the fungus is pretty darn smart, you know, getting its bidding to be done. Next. And then I'm sure that most of you have learned about the mycorrhizal networks underneath the ground, and I'm not really going to go into it, except that fungi are considered some of the largest organisms on the planet, and they can be hundreds of acres large, and they're connected to the roots of trees. And what they do is, and the other roots of plants, is they help the plant get more nutrients and more water, and they act as an internet of the forest, and, you know, sugars and hormones are flowing through this network. And, you know, sometimes, like in this picture, you'll see there's a broadleaf tree on the right and an evergreen tree on the left. And what some scientists have found, that in the winter, when the broadleaf tree doesn't have any leaves, the conifer will send sugar towards the broadleaf tree. And then in the summer, it'll reverse, that they'll help each other, that this underground fungus network is so smart, and it's just helping everything that's tapped into it. But here's the thing, that underground network is also very responsive to brain chemicals like serotonin, and that it will grow in response and change and can make quicker adjustments to its brain, to its network to deal with the problem. And this is some fascinating research here, is that they learned that, you know, we talk about, some people are talking about psilocybin as a way to help us rework our brain networks and how it's really good for trauma, but it does similar things in the ground. It's like, if we think about magic mushrooms, they're not just for humans. They actually are dumping serotonin into the environment to help the environment change and respond to stresses and to make intelligent decisions faster. So that just was like, oh my God, when I learned that. Okay, next. And viruses. Somebody wanted to know about viruses. So viruses are pretty amazing, and we don't really pay much attention to them until we have a huge pandemic. But viruses are very important to our climate balance, and they kill a half of the bacteria in the oceans every day, which is really important for the cycling of oxygen and carbon in our world. Viruses are, if you added up every living being on the planet, viruses would be more than that. There's more viruses than every living being on the planet. And something like, if you weighed all of the viruses, it would be equivalent to 86 million blue whales. There's a lot of viruses on our planet, and, you know, we have we're living in balance with them, except now we have a virus that we're not. And one could argue, is this part of an intelligent response to what is going on our planet? Next. So, like I said, when everything starts getting connected, and the bacteria and the fungus and the plants, they all function in a system that's actually intelligent on its own, right? Just like, it's like you can't separate out the plant from the fungus from it. It's like we're all this living, it's like one living being, and it just gets more and more intelligence the more creatures that are added to it. And they, cooperation, yes, nature is cooperative. So this is a situation where the kelp in the ocean, on low tides, when it's really hot, it will get stressed out. And so it will dump all this iodine into the air, which then comes up and creates this kind of cloud. Then it seeds rain, and then it brings rain down. So these systems are actually creating weather patterns for themselves to practice to bring balance back to the system. And it's true with different fungi in the Amazon. They'll release spores when things get dry, and those spores go up into the air and they seed rain, and they bring the rain down, which actually plants the spores and makes more mushrooms. So, you know, there's a lot of instances where the ecosystem and the climate are working together. They're not separate. The weather isn't just what happens to the system. The system and the climate are sort of one. And then another cool thing about that is like the pine trees in northern forests. They've found that when climate gets hotter, the pine trees are producing more volatile oils, like, you know, when you walk through the pine forest and it smells, especially when it's hot. So those volatile oils are actually creating a screen for the rays of the sun. So it's creating more reflection back of the sun. So it's offsetting the greenhouse gas rise by like creating it and making a screen so it's cooler for itself. So nature is pretty intelligent that way. Next slide. And so this is one of my teachers, Bobby Lake Tom, who died this year, sadly. And he was a medicine grizzly bear doctor from Northern California, who's Yurok, actually Karuk. And he learned from all of these old school medicine people. And one day we were sitting in his yard and he said, "Hey, Jolie, you see that cloud there? I'm going to move it. I'm going to make it disappear." And it was a little cloud. And then I looked at it and went, poof, it was gone. And he says, "You know what? I'm going to put that cloud right over there." And I looked, poof, and it came. And it's just like one cloud in like a totally cloudless sky, tiny little cloud. And he just moved it, you know? And it was just like, he was just sort of teasing. Like, he's just like, yeah, like, I mean, like, look what I can do. But like, it was more just like, this is just a little cloud. But I don't say this because it's like, look how cool Bobby was, which he was, but like, this is just something that humans know how to do, or we did know how to do. We are part of that system. We are part of that intricate web of life, and that it is our birthright to be part of it. And that we also are interwoven in the clouds and the water and the system. Next slide. Oh yeah, okay, so I wanted to tell this story about, I guess, a story about communicating with nature. So when I first moved to Ashland, Oregon 3 years ago, I didn't know anyone. And I do a lot of classes with kids about acorns. So I had hundreds of pounds of acorns in my shed, and I lived right near an oak woodland, and there were this whole colony of ground squirrels. And I was walking past it one day, and there was this hawk that was sitting in the tree. And so I talked to the hawk, and I was like, "Hey, hawk, I don't really know anyone here, and I hope you'll be my friend. And I hope it's okay. I live here on this land. I know it's your land." And I gave the squirrels some acorns. And so I walked back 2 hours later, and the hawk came in right next to me and called, and it dropped a decapitated ground squirrel right at my feet. Right? It was like, and I heard it. It was like, "It's okay. You're welcome here." So this is our relation. This is the way that we're supposed to be living on this planet, recognizing that everything can think and is alive and is responding. And I just wanted to put that in there. Like, we all have that ability. And I used to think that that was not within my cards because I was white, but that's not true. We all have this capacity. Next. And let's see, where are we on time? I think that's probably it. We can, dreaming with nature, we can do another time. But yeah, that's often how nature talks to us, is through dreams. And if we lived in cultures where people talked about their dreams and actually invited that sort of consciousness to come in, I think we would all really be amazed to see how much nature is talking to us all the time. Okay, next. Okay, so first, let's see if there's any questions. Maybe we can take the slideshow off, and more about dreams sometime, please. Okay, yeah, I'm actually doing a class, I think, in a few months called Dreaming with Nature. So that might fill that. So are there any questions or thoughts or things that people want to share before we do just a closing little group exercise?
And I remember everybody that if you want to talk, more than putting your hand like this, you can just click on participants and you will see a little sign that says raise your hand. So we will see if you have a question. You can also type your questions in the chat.
All right, well, I will share my dream about that kestrel first while people are typing their questions into chat. So I had this dream one night where this like funny bird flew around me and landed on my shoulder. And I was like, that is one funny bird. Like it had a lot of markings on it. And so I woke up and I was like, what bird is that? And I went to my bird book and I said, that's clearly a kestrel. It was no doubt. And then I was just amazed that I dreamed of this bird. Like I didn't know this bird and I dreamt of it. And then I walked outside my door and in my backyard, there was an entire tail of a kestrel. Like someone had killed that bird, some animal, and there was a tail there. And I was like, I don't know how I dreamt that, but that was really amazing. And then that was right when I was thinking about getting divorced. And when I finally made my decision 2 years later to get divorced and I was hiking on a trail and I knew it, I looked up and there was a kestrel flying over me, and it really helped me through that hard period. Oh, a hawk is right now circling me and my chickens. Oh, sweet. Okay, so did we have any questions or do we want to do our last final exercise? All our words regarding plants are human words, right? So we automatically anthropomorphize. Sometimes more than others, maybe like saying a plant is attacking or killing another when maybe it's a shared thing they can't tell about. It's true, but I think plants are very territorial. They're rooted in the ground and they can't go anywhere. So they're super territorial and they will actually put out chemicals that will stop other plants from growing near them. And in fact, they recognize their kin. And so some plants that would ordinarily put out toxins to other plants, they won't do it for their kin. They'll put more energy into, they'll put less energy into their roots and more energy into their aerial portions if they are growing near relatives. So yeah, it's anthropomorphizing, I guess. I don't know, it's a longer topic, but okay, so here's a question. How do we know whether our interpretation of nature is our own projection? That's an awesome question. Thank you for bringing it back around. And I think that, remember that exercise we did about feeling into what that feels like to be in nature? That's how we communicate with nature. That's how we know when nature is communicating with us. That's how I knew that hawk was communicating with us. And if a hawk throws a decapitated ground squirrel at your feet after you've just had a conversation with it, I mean, I could interpret that a bunch of different ways, but it was pretty darn clear to me that the hawk was like, yeah, thank you. So I think we're asking these cerebral questions and it's important to ask them, but I think we know. How did I know that dream about the kestrel wasn't some like weird thing that I had read some long time ago? It's like, because the tail of the kestrel was there. Like, I mean, I don't, I think we have to feel into it with our hearts. Nature, when it talks to me, when I talk to plants, it's from that felt sense of nature. And then I often go look it up in a book and say, is this true about the healing qualities of this plant? Is this, does this make sense? And I think that we as a culture are so disconnected from our Gaian bodies that we're like looking for proof in our minds when a lot of times the connection with nature is in our hearts and bodies. And I think this is a really good topic, and but I don't think we have time for it. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna break into like just the small groups again for just a few minutes before we come back, and maybe 5 minutes, and we're just gonna go forth. So in work that reconnects, we have the 4 parts of the spiral. We did the gratitude, feeling our pain, seeing with new eyes, and we're just gonna do a little going forth. So I want you guys to just share with someone something that you learned that was cool, and like a vow that you wanna make to the earth. Maybe it's taking a class, maybe it's going outside more, maybe it's, who knows? but it's a, you know, and you don't have to make a vow, but you could just, if this is an opportunity and you're somebody who feels like it would help them to make a little more of a vow or a commitment, or you can just share what you learned. But I wanted people to have an opportunity to like close by sharing with another person. So Sylvia, can we do that for like 6 minutes? So are there any things that people want to share? We have like 2 minutes. Is if there's people who feel, oh, can't hear anymore. Can you guys still hear me? Yeah. People can hear. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I mean, I just want to thank everybody for being here with us, and it's been such a joy to like be somewhere where everybody from around the world is joining together to learn how to connect with our Mother Earth in a heartfelt way. Okay, here's some chat. I wonder if a part of the epidemic of white supremacy is what causes us to distrust our connection with nature. Wow, that's pretty intense. I mean, yeah, I wish we had more time, because I would open it up and be like, what do you guys think?
Oh yeah, white supremacy, it destroys people and it destroys nature. Absolutely, because it's about the ego, greed, mistrust, not connecting with others and nature itself. Of course it's connected, very much so. And it will destroy the earth and people along with it if we do not come together and fight it.
All right, thank you for that.
Thank you. And I invite, there is another webinar about that. So I invite all of you who are interested in the topic to sign for the webinar with the panel on white supremacy in the world of Reconnects. But for this one, let's go back again to Jolie, and we have only a few minutes left.
I think that's pretty much all I want to say. Yeah, I think that when we think that we're separate, that's when we start thinking that like our power is gained by gaining power over, right? And that's when we start being like, I can have power, and the only way I can have power is if you don't have power. But the way nature works is like nature has power. It's like part of that net. Everybody's contributing to the power with, you know? And yeah, I think it's all connected for sure. It's a dominance.
Yeah. Thank you, Jolie, and thank you, everybody. So, on the name of the World of Reconnects Network, I want to, and I have still people coming in and out. I guess that they are disconnecting from the internet. And I want to invite you to check. We are gonna send, after this webinar, we're gonna send the recording, we're gonna send some extra materials from Jolie and from Jolie's class. And there are many different events that you can sign up in the World of Reconnects network. So I invite you to also explore those events. We run everything under the gift economy, which means, if you can donate. If you cannot, you're still welcome. We won't close the door to anybody. And if you enjoy the webinar, if you want to contribute to what the network is doing, you can continue donating using the same link of this particular webinar. So we know that it's for this one. Okay, so I would like to close for everybody to put a word of, how you're feeling, how is your mind in this moment regarding all these seeing with new Gaian eyes.
We need change. We need change for the better.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It's been just a total pleasure. Yeah, I'm so glad to have connected with you. And there's so many different threads that we could have followed. But I hope you can continue to feel that loving connection to the earth and expand on it, because I feel like that's gonna point our compass in the right direction towards healing.